Good afternoon, everyone who's joining us. I'm not sure how many people will get on today, so let's see how we go. I can see Barbara, Emily, Peter, Stephen on there. It's lovely to see you all. Thanks for coming on. We're also joined today by Evan and Matthew from Mesma, who are going to do the usual housekeeping around letting people in and monitoring the chat. So it's see Evan saying hi there. It says demo 2, but it is demo 2. So we are on demo 2. We're on the right slide deck and we've got everybody coming in, so that's a great start. Okay, so what we are going to cover today, this is the session for everybody who went on the Masterclass series and was on the second session. This is the demonstration of Mesma that accompanies that particular session as part of those three. I'll do a little bit of an introduction in a moment. This is all about how, if you are planning on or you're thinking about how you could implement some of the ideas that Louise talked about during the second quality cycle masterclass session, how you could implement those on Mesma, what that might look like, and I'm going to cover some of the features on the Mesma software platform that help you to do that. So I think that we've just gone 12 o'clock, so I'm going to start moving forward. So as mentioned, we're going to recap on just some of the key themes from the series. We're going to have a look at ways in which Mesma can support you to develop your quality cycle on the session today. And we're going to look at some of the offers that we have as far as the system is concerned at the moment for those people who are part of the Masterclass series. And then there'll be opportunity for everybody to ask questions at the end. So the aim of the demos is to show you how you can implement some of the practices that we've covered. It's deliberately separate from the sessions that we've ran. We had just about an hour to cover the content. We were really conscious that people were coming along, giving up their time to learn about quality cycles, and we wanted to keep the Mesma marketing element of it separate from the actual resources that we were doing covering on that session. We didn't want to lure people in on false pretenses, because we've had a lot of that in recent years, haven't we? So this is about us mirroring some of that content, and we know that some of you are already using Mesma. We know that some of you are perhaps thinking about it. That doesn't matter. Everyone's welcome to come in and have a look. The more the merrier. Okay, so let's move forward. For those people who were on the masterclasses, just to recap on what we've covered in those, they were an opportunity to reflect on the impact of your existing quality assurance practices, help you to move the dial on the results that you were seeing from those, and draw your attention to some of the research-informed ideas that are driving continuous improvement, some of the good practice that we're seeing across the sector. They were ran by Louise Doyle, as you probably will remember because you will have been on them. Some of you I know didn't. So there are three elements to the Masterclass series. There are the live sessions, there are these software demos, and resources. So Matthew and I are busy working away in the background with Louise and the team to pull together a set of resources that will support all of the themes covered in that session. We expect those to be out in the next couple of weeks. We will obviously be shouting it from the rooftops, so there's no doubt that you will miss them, but we will keep everybody informed of what's going on with those. Okay, now then, the three themes that we covered within the series, so each one of the sessions that we ran had a slightly different theme. Session 2 is the one we're focused on today. We've already covered KPIs, and this session was about designing and delivering an effective quality assurance cycle. It was about helping us to extend our understanding of that by looking at some of the methods that you could use, ensuring that you're making progress towards achieving those KPIs that we covered in that first session. Next week, we're going to look at, same time next week, we're going to look at observations of practice. Now, what I wanted to do on here, for those of you that were on the live session, you might remember this slide in the section where Louise went through some of the problems that we often see within the quality assurance cycle. So for those of you who know Mesma, and I'm sure that most of you do, a lot of the work that we do is out in the field working as support and advisory support and consultants within the sector. Also, in addition to that, we have the software platform, which is what you're here to look at today. Now, the problems that the teams see when we're out working with people on developing their quality cycle are up on the screen there, and Louise went through them in quite a bit of detail, so I'm not going to cover them in the same way that she did, but I'm going to pick on some of them and explain how Mesma can support you to implement those and develop those as you are working in terms of implementing some of the things to overcome those problems, those challenges. So on the screen there in front of you, you can see that we've got the first one, not always replan to support delivery of new priorities and ambitious objectives and key results. We covered a lot of that in the first session and last week. There's a lack of joined up lines of inquiry, so we are going to touch on that one, so we're going to cover that. In fact, when Louise put this slide on the session and she asked everybody to say which one of those were ones that you recognise that you would prioritise as areas that you would want to work on, number 2 was actually top of the pile in terms of the feedback that we got from delegates on the session. There's a reductionist model sometimes we see that results in a checklist approach, so where compliance and quality kind of overlap with one another, and there's a tendency to make sure that things are being done rather than how well they're being done. So we sometimes see that. Less emphasis on capacity building from strength. We'll touch on that a little bit today. We'll be able to see some of the ways in which Mesma supports you to do that. QA is done to rather than done with, which results in a lack of commitment from colleagues. We will always cover that when we're talking about Mesma. It's a collaborative software platform. It's all about bringing people together to work on quality assurance. So we will definitely touch on that today. Not always safeguarding against subjectivity in findings. And Louise made the point that this isn't necessarily about bringing external help in to provide you with some subjective critical friend reflection. This is as much about how do we involve people from other departments and other teams. Again, going back to that collaborative approach across different teams and departments, which again is something that we will be able to cover in today's session. Lack of QA limited in terms of scope, so it's very focused on teaching and learning and not necessarily about other areas of the business. We can have a look at that a little bit as we're going through today, and then a lack of consolidation in QA findings and reporting. So that's all about things for us like downloads and dashboards. So just to recap on that then, these are the kind of key 3 things that we're going to look at in terms of Mesma. So we'll have a look at those different areas. We'll have a look at how we can join things up, how we can get more people involved, and how we can consolidate the findings and the outputs of our quality assurance activity on the software platform. Now, what I thought might be helpful is just to think about Mesma for a second in terms of a quality cycle. So just before we get into it a little bit, I know some of you will be very familiar with this, but for those of you who don't, or maybe it's a bit of a recap just in terms of the scope of Mesma and what it covers. It's designed to be a single source of truth, the one space that everybody can work on and collaborate around quality practices and your quality cycle. And so within there, we have a range of products and tools that support each part of the quality cycle process on the platform. So we've already had a look at setting KPIs or whichever language, OKRs, whichever language you use to describe that on the KPI manager. We covered that in the last demo. We have within the system a quality calendar, so we might touch on that a little bit today if it feels relevant, but that links to, again, also your KPI manager, so being able to set those KPIs, QKPIs, OKRs, whichever language you use. And then being able to undertake a range of QA activities to check the progress against those. So we have a number of products in the system, and this is where that link in all of those different lines, those themes of inquiry come together. So being able to do that activity across a number of different areas in the system. So for evaluate, it would be self-assessment and deep dives. This is where you can do follow those lines of inquiry. On evaluate with the self-assessment tool, it's the self-assessment set to the Ofsted Education Inspection Framework. So it's giving you that quality standard already embedded in the system for you to be able to pick up on the themes that Ofsted define, and also your own in terms of the KPIs being sat above those. We've also got deep dives within evaluate, so you can pick up on those threads and start following them through, and that's what we're going to have a look at. Library in Mesma helps you to embed your evidence against those. So thinking about self-assessment and deep dives, you have a storage area for your evidence documents, and you're able to feed those directly into those self-assessments and to those deep dives. Similarly with develop, that's going to the level of the practitioner. It could, and we say practitioner, and we use that in a very broad definition. That could be your employer facing people. It could be your practitioners that sit in the background. So it could be your back office staff. It doesn't necessarily have to be practitioners that are teaching or advising. So it can be your other areas of the business. KPIs again fit into that process as well. So they're all part of the same kind of process and part of the same areas of Mesma. Improve helps you to manage your improvement plans. Again, it's linked. So there's a link between evaluate, develop, the improvement planning areas. So you're able to see those sources. That's what we're going to look at today, those sources of areas of improvement and how you're progressing towards overcoming those. Mesma and other resources helps you to source solutions to support improvement. And then moving down that grid, we've got undertake range of QA activities. So we're using the improvement plan, we're using evaluate and inquire, develop, the library, the KPI manager. So those different products are helping you to move through that quality cycle on Mesma, going back to working towards achieving those KPIs. So going back to our list, let's start having a look at how Mesma can help you to join up your lines of inquiry between the self-assessment report, the deep dive reviews and your quality improvement plans. So we'll do that first. So let's dive into the system. The first example that I'm going to give you, we're in an improvement plan actually. We're looking at one of our area quality improvement plans. So what you can see on the screen here, again, it's that theme about linking things together. So at the top of the screen, we've got objectives and key results, because we're using that language for our objectives, key results, KPIs, the KPI part. So this is sat centrally, and I can update those from within here as I'm completing the activities within the improvement plan, if that's how we've chose to set it up. So you can see that first objective there, we've got some areas of activity around British values. We can see that we've defined the objective, so this is what we're trying to achieve, and we could break that down to task level. So we've got a task underneath there assigned to colleagues. We've said in this case that we want to ensure British values are embedded well in all the programmes, ensuring the majority of learners are confident. We've got the expected impacts of what will be the result of doing that. And we can see that we've actually already achieved that. But what I'm interested in working on or finding out from here is, where did that come from? So why are we doing this particular activity in the first place? If I use this little link here, that's going to open up a pop-up box, and what you can see on there is we've got some linked questions. Now, what that means is that we're identifying the source of the activity. So the first section up here, I can see that it relates to PD3, and there's a criteria there, and this is actually from the Education Inspection Framework. So what this is telling me is that we've linked it to the SAR. So this has come from an area of self-assessment. British values, so we've recognised in our self-assessment report. Don't worry too much about the language, it's just that there's an area for improvement on there. British values are poorly embedded in the curriculum. Learners do not understand the relevance to their studies, work or life. And the way that I would enable that to happen would be that I would select the area of self-assessment. I could do it this way around, so I could go backwards into the SAR if I wanted to just add something into the improvement plan, or I could start from the SAR and I can push an improvement activity into the QIP. So a theme from the self-assessment report that we've identified as an area for improvement, we can add it into the quality improvement plan, and because Mesma keeps that link, we're keeping the thread between those two areas. What I can also see underneath here is that we've got some inquiries running. So this area for improvement has also been driven by what's going on in our deep dives. We have in there, we can see that we've got some findings that have come from two of the deep dives that we've got in the system, and I can go back and I can see that it's this initial review of promoting British values through the curriculum. So I know where that's come from. I can see that line of inquiry has led to us having this particular activity in the quality improvement plan. So what that means is that when we've completed this activity, I can repeat the process. So we have a second In the quality calendar up here, so you can see the quality calendars there, we might have a second deep dive inquiry scheduled in the diary to go back and reinvestigate and have a look and see how we're progressing with that. The other thing that we can do on here in terms of being able to track our progress towards achieving that overcoming that particular area for improvement is to use, sorry, I've just too fast clicked on that button, is to use something we call the summary button. So what that means is if I click on summaries here, I can see any updates that have happened. It's taken a snapshot. So it's taken a snapshot of our quality improvement plan. The line of improvement that we've gathered from the SAR and the deep dives is if been fed into here. If there's been an update on it, what I can do with it is I can add some comments into here. So it was to do with British values, activity completed, etc., etc. And then we've put that into there. And what that means is that if I save that summary, what that means is that when I go into there now in historic summaries, I'll be able to see those notes, I'll be able to see those updates. There's actually one there that we did a little while ago, and so you can see that progress towards, and actually you can also see the grades at the top in terms of how much progress we've made, how much impact we've had. So it's all about capturing the impact, seeing the progress towards achieving those outcomes, and then what that means is that we can, when we revisit the SAR, when we go back and do that second deep dive, we're following that line back and we're able to see if we've achieved what we intended to do. So when it comes to impact on the quality improvement plan, the way that the Mesma system is set up in terms of the improvement plans is to have an impact record as well. So when it comes to self-assessment season, as we're rapidly approaching it now, being able to tell your story is really important. So having easy access to things like content within a deep dive, impact notes on the quality improvement plan, they're all going to be really helpful, easily stored pieces of evidence that you can then transfer through into your self-assessment report, or at least help the team to be more, it's coming back to that collaboration. So the team have the information easy. If you've got somebody leaves, moves, changes jobs, then you've got easy access to that information. So it's about, having that one version of the truth, it being quite transparent, or very transparent, and everybody being able to see progress towards there. So I've spent a little bit longer on that particular feature because I felt that that was one that we really needed to kind of have a look at from the ones that we'd looked at in that session. The second one, and I'll just double check because I don't have the chat open in front of me if there's any questions on that. If there are any questions on any of the particular features, then please do drop in and let me know, and I'll be able to recap on them. Even if I do it at the end, that's no problem. The second one is the summary of the tags. So in the system, if I go into a self-assessment report, for example, so if I go back into our construction SAR, in the system, what we're able to do at different places is to use our tagging feature. So you can see there we've got tags in there at the end there. So I'm just going to go onto those. I'm zoomed right in, which is why I'm kind of moving around like this. So you can see here, if we wanted to tag this British values, because that was a theme that's come up as we're doing that, we could do it in there. Now this tagging feature isn't particular to the self-assessment report. They're defined by me, so as the leader as the administrator for the system, so or the team, we can define those. So we've got our own bank of tags sitting in the background, and we can tag data in the SAR, in the deep dives. We've got that in the observations, those consistent tags. And what that's able to do is it's able for you to be able to, because we're working with a lot of qualitative information that's sometimes hard for us to be able to analyse, it gives us a way of analysing the data by tagging it. So it could be that you have your own themes designed in here. So one of the things we're always talking about is how do you make the process your own? How do you develop your own KPIs? How do you go beyond the benchmarks? If you've got something that's particular to you, you can pop a tag into Mesma, make your teams aware of it, encourage them to use it where it's relevant, and then you're able to pick up on that theme. So like I say, that's in the self-assessment report. You can have that. You can also have those in the deep dives. I'm just going to show you in there. that we've got a deep dive in here. What we can do with that is we can tag these areas, these key themes, with this one here is tagged British values. And the beauty of tagging them in your deep dives is you're able to then search for them when you're writing your self-assessment report. So thinking about that line of inquiry, then easily being able to feed into the SAR. So I've tagged it one of my deep dives. I'm going to go into the self-assessment report. So I'm just going to jump into my SAR again. They look a little bit similar, but they are different. So there's a button in the self-assessment report and it's called Browse, Inquire, Deep Dives in Evaluate. So I'm going to click on that one. Now you can see in here, we've got lots of inquiries set up in here. Now what I can do is I can find that tag that I was looking for. I can find the British values tag, and it will bring up all of the ones where the British values has been identified, and I'm able to, I'm just going to pick on this one. I'm just going to pick on a few. You can see that there's a space for the key findings, areas for improvement and recommendations. So what I'm able to do is where we've got key findings, areas for improvement and recommendations from the deep dives, I can see them from within the self-assessment report. So I'm able to get the rich language that my colleagues have inputted into those 3 areas, and I'm able to pick out that language and use that. That's in addition to things like having reports that can summarize the data and tell me all about the key themes in terms of a summary. It's also about using that analysis at the kind of like the level of the detail, so how it was described, those areas of strength that Louise touched on as well. So where we've got those strengths, we can talk about it in it with examples, with really clear examples of how we've demonstrated that by doing those deep dives, by gathering that evidence at the level of the activity within the organisation. It just makes it really easy for you to be able to draw on that. So that's again another way we can use those tags as the key themes. The other things that the tags will do is, and again, this is touching on the 3rd point, which is about reporting, but I've just gone up into the dashboards here, and we have a dashboard for each of the different areas within Mesma. So one for self-assessments, for the improves, for the improvement plans, develop, and inquiries for the deep dives. And you can see here we've got a section of the dashboards that relates to the tags. So if we've got a particular number of tags used for, say, sequencing of learning, if we've got one for learner progress, British values is sat right down here, we're able to see in real time as those activities are happening, if tags are being used, where those tags are showing up. So straight away, it's turning that information, which sometimes then has to come back into the office and be analysed and be typed up into like an Excel spreadsheet. It's saving that time that you're losing to the administration. You're able to spend that actually looking at what does this mean. So diving into the information a little bit deeper, really spending more time working on it rather than using it like regurgitating it and putting it into a format that people can then use in a different way. So tags is showing up there as well. On develop, it's slightly different. So this is where we're thinking about observations of teaching, learning and assessment. We have a strength and recommendations section, as well as the tags, which enable you to pick out what our recommendations and strengths were against those key themes. And we'll touch on that a lot more next week when we start to look in particular at observations of teaching, learning and assessment or any other practice, as we mentioned. So tags, really powerful feature for everybody across the system. Okay, 3rd one was, just conscious of the time on here, because I do get very carried away, as you probably noticed, summary of strengths and recommendations. We've touched on just then when we looked at that one. So the 2nd point we wanted to look at today was not always safeguarding against subjectivity and findings, that idea of done to rather than done with. And there's 2 key features that I just wanted to touch on. There's plenty more, but the 2 ones that I really wanted to touch on in terms of being able to demonstrate how Mesma supports that is the ability for people to invite users. Now that seems like a quite straightforward and simple concept on the face of it, but it's just revisiting that idea that in many ways Mesma is collaborative. So it's about how do we involve other people in the process? How do we get people to be actively involved in a way that doesn't feel like it's being enforced onto them. It's something that they can be part of. So we'll have a quick look at invite users. We'll have a little bit of a look at templates on development module in particular, because I want to show you something on there if I can today as well. So invite users. Seems so straightforward, actually a slightly different approach than you might have seen by the methods that people traditionally use, which is Excel and etc. So one of the problems of using Excel and Word in terms of self-assessment, in terms of deep dives and all the other quality practices, is that if you enable people to have access to those processes by sharing documents on shared drives, etc., they become more vulnerable. I was talking to a very large provider earlier in the week about this problem, and just saying we're setting up some new processes, we're putting some templates into the system onto Excel. Immediate panic is around someone's going to come in, share it on the shared drive, they're going to overwrite the data, they're going to change the format, we're going to lose that consistency. But that then what you end up doing is locking things down, people can't get on, and it takes away someone, just for that very practical reason, you're restricting people's access to the process. So what we've done with Mesma is we've given people the ability to engage their colleagues in a way that isn't burdensome for central administrators. So we're not saying that central admin have to put people on, when we say central admin, we mean admin of Mesma. So we're saying they don't have to put people on, take people off as people change job roles or are involved in projects or not involved in projects. So what we've done throughout Mesma is we've given people the ability to involve who they want to involve. This is reflected in the pricing structure, which is why we have bands of pricing, so that we're not generous bands of pricing, so that we, maybe you wouldn't necessarily involve that person in it and you'd only want so many users, whereas this way around, people can be involved, they can be involved for a bit, they can just be part of the ones that are relevant to them, part of the areas of activity that are relevant to them. So we have something called view users and invite users in Mesma. So if this is my self-assessment report and I own this, what I can do is I can invite colleagues in at my discretion, providing I've been given permission to do that. And that means that I can go to invite users and I can pick somebody either from the system or a new user who isn't currently using Mesma and be involved with us, again, providing that you've got permission to be able to do that. And you can do that in self-assessment, you can do that in deep dives, you can do that in the quality improvement plan. So it's about, and what that means is that person's permission structure will mean that they can either be a read-only participant, it's great for senior leaders who don't necessarily want to see every button when they come on, but they can be involved in the way that you want them to be involved. So there's a different permission settings with this. So they can be a participant. We have something called moderator and approver in the system as well. If you choose to use that feature, then that would show up in the list. And then we've got readers as in there too. Slightly different permission structure in develop, because we have people, so for observations of teaching, learning and assessment, which is what I wanted to touch on. So in here you might have people who are, you might have a section where you can invite the individual to give their own reflections, but you might want to involve the line manager to just add some comments into here. You might want certain people to be able to see an observation area, but not necessarily be able to edit things or necessarily be able to see that person's CPD plan, but you want them to be able to put information into the CPD plan. So we spend quite a lot of time thinking about, because we know these processes really well and we take feedback from our customers, how do we want people to be involved in the process? So so that's the way that Mesma's very different from traditional methods of Word, Excel, etc., because it gives you the ability to be able to involve your colleagues in the process in a way that's not scary and feels like things are going to get out of control, but enables them to be part of it. So they're part of the process, but because of the permission areas and they're all throughout the system in different ways, we're making sure that people are involved in the right way. And also it's not going to be too burdensome for our central administrators. And so this is what we're saying about the templates. So the templates, some of the templates have areas where I can get that person involved, or I just want them to add some comments in. It's not necessarily about them having responsibility for the full thing. Very last minute, so we've already touched on a little bit in terms of the downloads and the dashboards. Throughout the system, so for example, one of the questions we get often is, I've done my self-assessment on Mesma, can I download this and share it straight away with Ofsted or my SMT? Absolutely, yes, you can do. So throughout the system, if you can get the information in, we're giving you the ability to get the information out the other side. There are lots of ways in which you've got Excel downloads in Mesma, you've got a PDF download of the SAR in Evaluate, and you've also got the dashboards, which we've touched on very briefly then. Difference between that and traditional methods like Excel and Word, etc., is that you've not got that middle section, as I've mentioned. So you've not got the administration in between. Providing that people are using the system in real time, you'll have real-time information on the other side without your admin team or your quality coordinators or yourself, as we often say, having to do that double keying and data entry into the system. Now, I'm very conscious that it's just turned past, and you guys probably have got lunch to get or other things, other places to be. So that's the demonstration for today. What I would like to say is just that there are a couple of things that we are doing at the moment that are slightly different. So we've got a risk-free launch. We know that people have got budget rounds happening. We know that people are very conscious about spend. So we've thought, how do we make this a little bit easier for people given the economic climate? So we've introduced a quarterly contract option for everybody. You can get started today on the Mesma 5.2 starter package, which is so you can have 5 users for 2 months. So they're the two options that we've got in terms of risk-free launch. Evan's on the call with us today. We'll be in touch after the session. If you want to get any more information about those two options, then you can either request information through the website, or Evan will pick up with Evan, book an appointment with him. He'll talk you through it. There's no pressure to do either of them. It's just to give you a bit more information if you wanted to find out more about them. If you are a Mesma customer, I will mention it again. We're running improvement partners in the autumn. We've got I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we've had great interest in it already. So we might close it at some point, dependent upon if we get any more soon. So there's a chance that that might close because we don't want to have too many people on it. But if you're a Mesma Software client, we're doing a deep dive as a group on improvement planning. We facilitate them with an initial meeting, a midpoint review and a final review. And it's just a way of coming together, working on a particular theme and drawing on and learning from other people. So if you want to be involved in that, then do drop us a note. Either drop me an email, drop Evan an email, go to the Hello Art, or drop us a query through the website. You're very, very welcome to come on to that. Final thing to mention, if you're a Mesma customer or you're on the starter package, the 5.2, and you want to find out a little bit more in terms of like a bit of a slower run through some of the things that we've talked about, you can use Mesmasters. So go to either scan the QR, go to the events section on the website, and we run training sessions that are live. Lots of them are recorded and put into the help centre as well. But you can spend a bit more time with the customer success team going through the features in more detail. I'm really appreciative of everybody staying on a little bit longer today, so thank you so much. If you've got any questions, then do drop them in the chat and we'll hang around for a couple of minutes. But thanks for coming along today.